Okay, so what is modern historiography? Modern historiography, we have studied what is ancient historiography. So in ancient historiography, whatever resources are available, we kind of frame our opinions based on them. So resources like cave paintings, manuscripts, and all that stuff. So that is basically ancient historiography. Now what is modern historiography? Modern historiography, the method that is involved is scientific principles. Now is it concerning with empirical based formulas? No. So here scientific principles means that we ask relevant questions and we get the answers. Okay, scientific principles means, for example, I have a ballad or let's say a poem about a ruler. Okay, that a ruler can be anyone, Prithviraj Chauhan or maybe Shivaji Maharaj. Okay, so a ballad has been composed or a song has been composed, and if I were following the ancient history trend, I will just accept that as it is and I would write my historical narrative. But the modern approach says that whatever narratives we have received, okay, or whatever documents we have received, to ask relevant questions whether these events have actually happened. So relevant questions, when you ask questions, obviously you will have scientific principles in order to answer those questions. So you will actually correlate with all the proofs that we have available for a particular event, for a particular era, or for a particular time frame. So we will not just accept whatever is available as a resource to us and write the historical narrative. We will accept it and frame relevant questions, get the answers of those questions, and then write the historical narrative. So that's the modern historical approach. So whatever we have received, so supposedly there was a particular time frame, okay, there is a particular time that was there, and let's say in those times whatever we have received as resources are speaking very good about the ruler or very good about the administration. So was everything all right in that system? Were there no flaws or no defects in the system, in the administration? So that's one perspective that we might miss on. See, human beings is basically, or human society has evolved. Human society is evolved by by enhancing whatever we are doing good and by terminating whatever we are doing bad. Okay, by kind of refraining from doing or repeating our mistakes. So our mistakes have to be acknowledged as well. Okay, so most of the times what happens is that whatever resources we get, those mistakes or I'm sorry, those flaws are not there in those things. Okay, so we need to ask relevant questions, identify them, examine the authenticity of the sources. So we do this by scientific methods of carbon dating and all. Okay, examine the authenticity of the sources by correlating to the events, by scientifically doing the carbon dating method available. So whatever resources are available, songs, ballads, whatever are available, we will examine it properly. Only then we will kind of confirm it. Okay, now the questions that we have, these questions that we are going to ask should be anthropocentric. Now what is anthropocentric? Anthropocentric basically comes from the word anthropology. It is a basic science. Okay, anthropology basically studies the development of human societies and culture. So in anthropology, we actually study the development of human societies, the behaviors and the cultures. Okay, so the question should be anthropocentric. How has it caused the development of the human race? Okay, so that's the relevant questions. For example, I have an event that has happened in the past. Now I am not going to correlate to that event from that contemporary system. I am going to ask relevant questions as to how it has impacted the history, how it has impacted the life of mankind. Okay, deeds of people in ancient societies. So what were the deeds of people in ancient societies? That's how we will study history. So the questions that we are going to ask, okay, relevant questions. What are these relevant questions? Questions can be thousands and millions about a particular event, but the questions that we are going to ask are going to be centered around the development of human society. So the questions that we are going to ask about a particular era, time, or an event that has happened in the past will be in strong correlation to whatever has happened in the past. No correlation between the divine and the human deeds. We need to understand this. There is basically no correlation between the divine and the human deeds. Okay, see, history has a strong correlation to religion, and different religious texts, whether it's Bible, whether it is Quran, whether it's Gita, whether it's Veds. Okay, so they have different correlation to God. Okay, so God created and then God came and then God, so there are different scriptures out there. So we will just not take it as it is presented. Okay, so there might be a religious text in which it is mentioned that God came and God did this and God did that. So we are not going to just accept it as it is mentioned out there, because any which way it is written by a human being. Okay, so there is no correlation to divine and human deeds. Human deeds and divine deeds have no correlation at all. We are not going to study history from the perspective of the divine. Okay, because the divine perspective, the mythologies involved are different. Okay, they might be correct, they might be incorrect. We are not going to debate on that, but we are not going to follow the divine perspective. For example, in science, if we talk about evolution in science, we generally correlate to a Darwin's theory, or what is a Lamarck's theory, or what is a Hugo de Vries theory. So these are different theories of evolution. Are these theories absolutely correct? Maybe or maybe not. Okay, but we have certain proofs, we have certain rational and logic behind these theories of evolution. Even Darwin, even Lamarck, or even Hugo de Vries, or many other scientists were not present at that point of time to see all these. But with all the evidences that we have come to a conclusion that this might have happened. Now, contrary to all the other people, let's say, or rather religious texts, Bible believes in a different theory of evolution. The Vedas believe in a different theory of evolution. The Mohammedans believe in a different theory of evolution. So every religious text or every religious belief system has its own different theory of evolution. Okay, so this is something that is not regarded by history. Okay, neither it is regarded by science, neither it is regarded by history. So history is basically eliminating any aspect of the divine and the divine deeds that might be mentioned anywhere. So they are not, history is basically based on evidence, and they are not correlating to this evidence of scriptures that are written in different texts. So just as we disregard the religious theories of evolution mentioned in different texts while studying evolution in science, so we disregard the any divine deeds that are recorded in different scriptures while studying history. Okay, so relevant evidence, this is basically reliable evidence. The evidence that we have got should be reliable. Okay, it should be relevant, it should be pertaining to the time and era, and it should be easily by scientific methods we can determine its age and all that stuff. So it should be a relevant evidence. So history is basically the graph of mankind or journey of past human deeds. Okay, past human deeds, whatever has happened. This is originating from ancient Greek. So where is this word history originating from? It is originating from ancient Greek historians. Herodotus. Herodotus is basically a Greek historian, and he is the one who in 5th century BC wrote the histories. Okay, so this approach of a scientific approach, of a modern approach towards history and its study was first acknowledged and worked upon by the Greek historians. As we know that the Mesopotamian civilization, or rather the Greek civilization, was the one which developed, which was one of the first civilizations to develop. So history evolved as a science, or history evolved as a core subject during those times, in which history started to be developing as a science which has a rational approach. And Herodotus was the first person who coined the term the histories. Okay, that happened in the 5th century BC. You can take a snapshot of the same. We'll continue with more on this. Okay, so we are going to proceed ahead more on the, now we have considered what is historiography, why was the need of a scientific temperament felt for decoding history, how are the different traditions of history, one was the ancient and one was the modern approach, how it developed in Greek, okay, how the term history was coined by Herodotus. So these are things that we have already discussed. Now we will discuss about the development of scientific perspective in Europe and historiography. Why are these two events kind of correlated? Because in Europe now development started happening. Now people started to think and question things. Okay, now there was a lot of scientists who were developing. For example, Newton, he was the one who actually prior to that we thought that everything is attracted towards the earth because of a divine force, but no, it was gravitation. Then Galileo, so there were numerous scientific contributions that were being made. Now people started thinking on scientific terms, okay. Till 18th century, okay, till 18th century philosophy, till 18th century there was a significant development both in philosophy and science. So the parameters of philosophy and science developed a lot, okay. Development happened in Europe. Because of the contributions of different philosophers and scientists, a huge development happened in Europe, okay. So philosophy and science developed, because of which the way in which we looked at history, the way in which we considered the different myths and divine incidents that have happened in history started to change, okay. So so now history can be studied by applied sciences. So we can now apply science and rational to study history. So now whatever sciences were applicable, we can actually use them to study history. For example, Darwin's theory of evolution, when it was presented, or when that was actually compiled, people made a lot of protest that no, this is against Bible, or this is against the myth. So whatever was said, by and large, started getting accepted by people, because some points were convincing enough to the human rationale, okay. So can be studied by applied sciences. So now people started to believe that these scientific theories are more appealing to the logic of human beings, okay, rather than just believing in the myths and traditions that were prevalent in the society in those times. So now the social and the historical truths can be verified, can be studied by applying science. So the application of science, or rather logic or rational relevant questions, all of this kind of started emerging, and history, the study of history got a scientific and rational approach in bits and pieces. Okay. So prior to this, it was more of a godly and divine events, okay, and more of assumptions were there. So prior to this, history was considered more of a stuff in which God has a huge part to play, and a lot of divine events happened, and there were a lot of assumptions that were made. So this happened because of this, the destruction happened because of God, creation happened because of God, everything, okay. So a lot of assumptions were made prior to this in the study of history. Now those assumptions are getting diluted by a scientific temperament and a rational approach. So things now are going to be in a hence proof mode. Okay, this happened, so this is the proof of the event. This happened, so this is the proof of the event. So that's how things kind of got segregated. So this was a divine phenomena. Okay, everybody in European universities believed that there is a divine phenomena which is happening. Even in European universities, which were basically the centers of knowledge. Okay, so it was strongly believed that all the things that have happened in the past and will happen and are happening in the present and will happen in the future are more or less divine phenomena. So this kind of got eradicated. This kind of got diluted with the evolution of science and philosophy in a more rational perspective. Okay, so this is how history evolved. So the first time in 1737, there was this university, Göttingen University in Germany, and the first time there is a department of history that evolved. See, if you go to any university in any part of the world today, you will find a department of history. But at that point of time, history department itself was not there. So it's the first time that a department of history was created, and this marks the the evolution of studying history in universities as it should be studied. Okay, rather than considering history to be a set of beliefs or set of mythologies or a set of assumptions, history had a proper base of study, and this is how it evolved. Okay, so you can take a snapshot of the same. So now we have studied what is the concept of, or rather what is the contribution of the development of science and philosophy towards history, which was significantly getting developed in European countries. Now there were people who were responsible for the development. So now we are going to study the contribution of different scholars for the development of history as a scientific and empirical study. Okay, you can take a snapshot of the same. Okay, so now we are going to consider the various scholars who basically developed philosophy and science, who had major contributions to the concept of historiography. Okay, so the first thing that we have, or the first person to have made a major contribution was Rene Descartes. Okay, and he wrote a book on the discourse on the method. That's a book in which what are the ideas that he has expressed about historiography. He insisted on verifying the reliability of historical documents by critically examining them. So according to him, we will not just accept the resources available as they are. We have to basically accept them by critically examining them. Okay, so according to him, until unless we have done a full thorough critical examination of all the resources available to us, we should not come to a conclusion in terms of historiography. So that's what it was, having a proper critical examination of all the resources that are clearly available to us. Okay, then we have Voltaire, Francois Marie Heroit, that was his complete name, and this is his name. He is also known as the founder of modern historiography. Why? In fact, he was one of the most learned scholars at that time. So what he is saying is that history is just not the study of chronology of events about the objective truth, but it is also understanding all aspects of human life. Basically, if we are considering a particular period or era, we have to consider all the aspects of human life, just not the chronology of events that have happened, but we have to decode what was the social traditions followed at a particular time, what was the trade, what was the economy, how was the agriculture, etc. So whatever aspects are very much correlated to human life, they should be studied in detail under history as well. Okay, so history is just not studying a chronology of events. This happened, this happened, this happened, and this happened at this time, this happened at this time. So it's just not the study, but it is also correlated to the basics of human life. Okay, it is important in writing history. So just as the chronology is important, just as the objective truth is important, which should be critically examined, so is the different factors of human life. They are also extremely important, so they cannot be disregarded and they have to be taken into consideration as well. So these were the two scholars. We will study about more scholars who have made their significant contribution in the concept of historiography. Okay, you can take a snapshot of the same.